Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be getting started shortly, but while we have folks kind of joining, getting logged in, I'd love to tell you about some upcoming webinars here at the center. On Tuesday, November 7th, we'll have Evaluating United States Air Force Hearing Conservation Educational Materials. That will be with Major Thomas Dominguez and the Rocky Mountain Center for Occupational and Environmental Health. Also on Wednesday, November 15th, we'll have Assessing the Relationship Between Job Tasks and Musculoskeletal Pain in Firefighters and Law Enforcement Officers, and that will be with Matthew Thies, PhD, MSPH. On Wednesday, November 29th, we'll have a presentation on the California Artificial Stone and Silicosis Project, and that'll be with Kristen Cummings, MD, MPH, and Robert Harrison, MD, MPH. So we hope you're able to join us for those presentations later this month as well. Today's webinar, A Wildfire Smoke Exposure and Post-Fire Cleanup, Mitigating Hazards, is brought to you by Michael Strange, CIH. A few housekeeping items before we get started today. You are going to be muted during the presentation. If you'd like to ask a question, we invite you to enter it into the Q&A box. And we will save time at the end of the presentation to answer and address as many questions as possible. This presentation is being recorded and will be made available on the Center for Occupational and Environmental Health YouTube page in the next 5 business days. And all participants who logged in with their registration email for the full live presentation today will receive an email tomorrow with a link to an evaluation form that will qualify you for a certificate of completion worth 1 continuing education contact hour. Once the evaluation is completed, you'll be able to access and print your certificate. And it is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Michael Strange, CIH. Michael began his 40-year career working in a pulmonary function laboratory, then an industrial hygiene and environmental lab. He became a certified industrial hygienist in 1990. He was a senior consultant for Zurich Insurance for 5 years, and then a principal consultant for Chubb Global Risk Advisors, where his consultation practice was utilized in Australia, Europe, Africa, as well as Canada and Mexico. Today, he enjoys semi-retirement as well as consulting and publishing. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. It's nice to be here. And thank you all for registering and attending today. I think this is a very important topic that probably most of us know something about, but I hope that you'll find this presentation meaningful and informative for you. First of all, you may have heard the term Wildland-Urban Interface, or WUI, and that refers to the zone of transition between unoccupied land and human development. Now, about 33% of all homes in the U.S. are located in this wildland-urban interface, either near forests or other type of natural vegetation. In California alone, a 2010 study cited 4.46 million homes in these WUI areas. I'm sorry, I wish there was more recent data. Now, the expansion of the wildlife-urban interface increases both the potential impacts on people from wildfires, as well as potential ignitions of more wildfires from the activity of people. So it's a self-sustaining, increasing spiral. More humans mean more potential spark sources, and especially careless ones. Now, if you add climate change to that vector, less water, dry vegetation, as well as longer fire seasons, that's going to yield higher fire smoke exposures. The danger needs to be discussed, and we need to be prepared for the fires as well as for the wildfire smoke. Today, I'll describe as a chemist the components of wildfire smoke, the health impacts on high-risk groups, as well as on healthy individuals. Then we'll cover methods to minimize exposure during a post-fire cleanup, and then we'll talk about preparing for wildfire smoke events. Now, it's going to seem kind of backwards, but I figured before we talk about what to prepare for, before how to prepare, we need to talk about what we're preparing for. So I'd like to start off with this poll. There's no wrong answer to this. I'd just like to get an idea of where everybody's experience is with wildfires. So if you could take a moment and answer the question, Michelle will give us the results.
Looks like we're at about a 50% response rate. So we'll give another couple of seconds here for everyone to go ahead and submit their answers. All right, I'm going to close the poll in another 5 seconds. Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to share the results.
Okay. Wow, looks like the predominant thing that they've been close enough to affect air quality. And in fact, that some of the other ones, I figured that part of this would have to do with geography of where you're calling in from. If you're calling in from Louisiana, you probably don't have a lot of wildfires like we do in California. Or if you do have a fire, it's a different type of situation. I would like to express my condolences to anybody who has lost a home to either fire or earthquakes or hurricanes or anything like that. That's could be a hard question to answer. So let's close that off. Again, there's no right answer to that. It's just your experience. Okay. Now this graph plots acres burned each year from 1960 to 2020. And there have been some outlier years. As you see, it's going up and down a bit. But the overall integrated average throughout all of these, you can see that it's going upward. And the past high years have been much higher than the previous high peaks too. So this does seem to be a trend that's increasing. And according to the U.S. Global Change Research Project, they are increasing in size, and that's based on a reference from 2018. Wildfire smoke itself is composed of a mixture of gaseous pollutants, water vapor, and particle pollution. Particle pollution is the main component of wildfire smoke, especially the further you get away from the fire itself, and it's the principal public health threat. There are three aerodynamic sizes of particles of concern that affect different parts of the body. The aerodynamic diameter is that estimate of what the diameter would be if the particle were a perfect sphere, and it's reported in micrometers or microns. The coarse particles, or also known as PM10, are those particles with diameters smaller than or equal to 10 micrometers. Coarse particles are mainly generated from mechanical operations like construction and agriculture. When breathed, these are generally deposited in the nose, sinuses, throat, and the upper respiratory tract. Now, PM10 will include all the subsets below it, and the first subset are the fine particles, also known as PM2.5. These are less than 2.5 micron, and they can deposit into the deep layers of the lungs, such as the bronchioles and the alveoli. It's the main pollutant emitted from wildfire smoke, comprising approximately 90% of the total particulate mass. The fine particles from wildfire smoke are the greatest health concern of anything. The ultrafine particles, which again is a subset of PM2.5, they're those that have a diameter less than 0.1 microns. Ultrafine particles, when breathed, they can pass into the bloodstream. So anything, the fine particles and ultrafine. Now, that number should actually scare us because fire smoke particulate is about, as I said, 90% of these fine particulates, PM2.5. And why is that? Again, because the smaller, lighter particles get breathed into the deeper layers of lungs, the bronchioles and alveoli, which are a lot more sensitive tissue. Now, why is fire smoke composed of 90% smaller particles? It's because they're more easily moved by wind patterns while the larger ones settle out. Consequently, there's more irritation and potential damage to the sensitive lung tissue. So during a fire smoke event, it's important to minimize your exposure as much as possible. And we will be talking about that in this presentation. So let's go to the gases and vapors. I'm not sure if this is really much of a factor further downstream from the fire, but this is what's produced by fire smoke as it's being generated. First of all, there's carbon monoxide. That's a byproduct of incomplete combustion. It's usually produced by engines as well as burning wood. It's an asphyxiant because it binds onto hemoglobin in the blood, displacing oxygen. Now, people with some types of heart disease are especially vulnerable to the effects of CO when exercising or under stress. In these situations, the short-term exposure could result in reduced oxygen to the heart and accompanied by chest pains, also angina. Carbon dioxide is the product of complete combustion. It's far less toxic than CO. The permissible exposure limit for CO2 is 5,000 ppm, as opposed to PL for CO of 25 ppm in California, 35 ppm federally. All of these are 8-hour time-weighted averages. There's also hydrocarbons like benzene, um, acrolein, and various aldehydes such as formaldehyde, as well as polynuclear aromatics and polyaromatic hydrocarbons. Any and all of these can be carcinogens, not carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, but these hydrocarbons could be. Now, what about the fire retardant that's used? According to the research that I could find, primarily is listed Phos-Chek is the brand name, and I've checked the SDS and found diammonium phosphate at greater than 90%, which would not necessarily be an inhalation hazard, certainly not downwind of the fire. According to, these are some of the common outcomes of the fire smoke exposure. Now, it can affect very healthy people as well as the more sensitive groups. All more reason to protect these sensitive groups. And you'll see some of these effects right here. We do anticipate respiratory and cardiovascular outcomes, and the longer the exposure lasts or it's repeated, there's a cumulative effect. Now, here are some key exposure groups more likely to be impacted by fire smoke exposure. Outdoor workers are obviously at the greatest risk, and the extent of which of their exposure would be defined by the length of exposure. Are they 8 hours outdoors? Are they working indoors some of the time? Now, residents and renters can usually choose how much time they spend outdoors, and extra care should be taken for hospital patients, especially those with respiratory and/or heart conditions. Some of this particulate matter can get indoors, and so again, they need to be protected. And we'll talk about some of the ways, including ventilation. These graphs show the relative risk for different populations by age in both all-cause cardiovascular and respiratory. You can see the age group 65 and older are at the greatest risk of the three, less for adults 45 to 64. The green squares represent the total population 19 to 65 plus, and they did not have data for 19 to 45 or children under 19. You may have seen this before, the Indoor Air Quality Index. EPA requires metropolitan statistical areas with populations of 350,000 or more to report the AQI daily to the general public. And EPA developed this AQI protocol. The population of an MSA is based on US census data. It takes a full 24 hours to obtain an AQI value. That's 24 hourly values for particulates. And for other pollutants, it's a maximum of 1 hour or 8-hour value in a 24-hour period. So that gets a little bit confusing. But anyway, when you review these values, you're really reviewing the previous 24-hour history, not necessarily the current information, but it does help us see the trends like the weather. Now, the levels are color-coded with an explanation of who's at risk. If the AQI is higher than 500, then it's simply called beyond the AQI, and the same information and precautions are used as the highest hazardous category. If the AQI value for all pollutants remained below 50 for a year, then the MSA may report the AQI at their own discretion. In subsequent years, if any pollutant level rises to where the AQI would be above 50, then they have to go back to reporting the AQI. Now, here are the individual parameters that goes into the calculations of the AQIs. Now, they have to be studied at least 5 days a week. For example, you see here ozone requires a full 8-hour sample, or at least one full 8-hour sample, and a certain number of 1-hour samples to go into these various categories. With PM10, 2.5 and PM10, we're looking at 24-hour samples, the full 24-hour. With carbon monoxide, we're looking at 8 hours. One 8-hour sample or an 8-hour sample, or a number of samples to where you show a reasonable time-weighted average. With sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide, they're 1 hour. Now, these three, ozone, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide, are not components of fire smoke, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. It actually goes with industrial pollution, because EPA tried to make one AQI that would tell it all, whether it was a wildfire or industrial pollution. And here are the is applied to each individual compound and is reported in detail. The right side identifies sensitive groups to the specific contaminant. And you'll see down here that under the PM 2.5, it includes just about everyone. And here's how you can get the AQI reported. It comes through on traditional media like television, newspaper, radio, phone, and in digital through widgets, apps, web pages, and social media. Now, the goal of the AQI advisories is to help you reduce your inhaled dose of air pollution when the pollution levels are high. The inhaled dose is about equal to the product of the ambient concentration, the breathing rate in liters per minute, and the duration of exposure in minutes. Now, this is a unitless number. It's not corresponding to any dose like milligrams per kilogram. It's just a linear proportionality. Reducing any of these three factors will lower the inhaled dose. Reducing them all will greatly lower your dose. AQI advisories inform the public how to reduce the concentration. For example, you may stay indoors until the air quality is better. The ventilation rate, you control, that's your breathing rate. You can control by going for a walk instead of a jog, or exercising indoors, or the duration of exposure, spending less time engaged in outdoor exertion. You may also have seen the nowcast. It's for particulate matter. It shows your current air quality using the AQI colors and scale. And it uses it for two algorithms called nowcast. It relates hourly readings from air quality monitors to the AQI for ozone and for particulate matter. The nowcast shows you air quality for the most current hour, available using a calculation involving multiple hours of past data. The nowcast gives you the latest information on air quality where you are. Because the air quality can change during the day, you may see the AQI change as well. Now, you can see this anywhere you see current air quality information on airnow.gov, and that's been calculated using the nowcast. The EPA also provides current air quality information to the state and local agencies, media, app developers, and others. So this information is very accessible to all of us if we just know where to look for it. And I'd like to ask a question. We'll do a multiple choice question here, a QA. Which is the multiple component of wildfire smoke and the primary threat to public health? So which is the worst contaminant of all of these shown here?
Great. The poll is launched. We've got about 40% of people responding so far. So I'll give it another 10 seconds or so for folks to put in their answers. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results.
Okay, particulate matter, 89%. That's very good. Thank you. I ask these questions as much for myself as for you because I want to make sure that I'm getting the information across as we need to do. Carbon monoxide is a really bad hazard for sure, and it has the lowest permissible exposure limit of it all. But you have to question whether it's actually getting to you um, from the fire itself. And so the answer is particulate matter. That's correct. So thank you all. I have another question here, a couple more. This is a true-false question. EPA AQI reports all the components of wildfire smoke. Is that true or is that false?
All right, great. We're already at about 50% responding. So give it another 5 seconds or
Okay.
so if you haven't yet submitted your answer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results.
Okay, false. Very good. Um, it was almost a trick question because the one component that wildfire smoke that they don't report is carbon dioxide. Um, and carbon monoxide. What they look at is particulate matter um, and oxides of sulfur and nitrogen and ozone because that and carbon monoxide because those are potential air pollution ones. Um, so just something I've noticed, by the way, too, whenever you have a true false question that's a blanket question like that, I found the answer is usually false. So thank you. Thank you for participating. Okay, there we go. Now, one more question. Which size particles from wildfires are the greatest health concern?
All right, we're at about 50%. We'll give it another 10 seconds or so for folks to get their answers in there. As a reminder, these are anonymous polls, so there's no worries if you don't get the answer right. I appreciate everybody participating. This is great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results.
Okay, 2.5 microns, very good. Yes, that is the correct answer. And yes, there is some concern with the 10 microns. Now, 5 microns would be a subset of 10 because 2.5 is the next one down, and the ultrafine. So they do need to be considered. So those of you that answered equal health concern, you were on the right track there. So, thank you all. If I look at all these grades here, I guess I would have to call myself a B plus speaker. So I don't mind that. Thank you very much. Um, Strong winds can cause this rapid fire spread and move smoke into communities a long ways away from the fire, and it can diffuse in an ever-expanding circle around the fire or be picked up by the wind and carried hundreds of miles. This photo shows a smoke from the 2018 Camp Fire caused 3 weeks of poor air quality in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now I live around right here, and the Camp Fire really did nothing in terms of our air quality, but look at what it blanketed over San Francisco and the Bay Area totally. Predicting the air quality will improve or worsen can be difficult because of the behavior of these wildfire smokes. Terrain, wind, and weather. Like a wind can usually clear out a valley and also can blow more smoke in or fan the flames, intensifying the fires and worsening smoke. The intense heat generated by an active wildfire drives smoke high into the air, or it remains until it's cooled and begins to descend. As smoke moves downward to ground level, it becomes more diluted and often more widespread. Terrain also affects smoke concentrations. Like the sun warms the mountain slopes, air is heated and it rises, bringing the smoke and with it from the lower elevations affected by the smoke. Then as sunlight passes, the terrain cools and the air descends, creating a downslope airflow that can alter the smoke dispersal pattern. Daily cycles can help predict repeating patterns of smoke exposure in communities. Since the smoke concentrations during wildfire are constantly changing, it's important to check frequently for smoke updates on either on the airnow.gov, which I mentioned a little earlier, and there they've also got a fire and smoke map that's also very useful for you. Here are some photographs of the aftermath of the recent fire in Maui. I don't have any data on any sampling that might have been done, but it's an extreme example of hazardous conditions after a widespread fire. Take a look at the unstable ruins at the front of the firefighters and the burning can behind them. There are safety hazards as well as risks of exposure to the airborne ash waste, which could contain some of the carcinogenic compounds that I mentioned earlier. And the ash and the soot dust could result in airborne exposure too. It might be off-gassing formaldehyde, benzene, or acrolein, or any of the PNAs. It should be considered more hazardous than particulates not otherwise classified. And here are some of the symptoms someone could present if adequate planning and personal protection isn't done. The ash is an irritant to skin and the respiratory tract, as well as an ingestion hazard. After a wildfire, trained firefighters need to make sure that the fire is completely out. If there's any chance the wildfire could reignite, you want to leave immediately and notify emergency personnel. You want to be aware of unstable or damaged houses and other structures, hazard trees or snag trees. You don't want to assume these areas are safe or stable because damage may not be noticeable and can create a risk for serious injuries, slips and falls, punctures, or being struck by collapsing materials. To prevent injuries from burnt and unstable structures, you want to conduct a thorough inspection, identify and eliminate hazards before any work is done. And wear PPE, that would mean long sleeve shirts and pants, hard hats, safety glasses, leather gloves, and steel-toed boots to reduce the risk of injury. For bigger jobs, I'd even want a Tyvek suit and air purifying respirator instead of an N95. Leave immediately if a structure shifts or makes an unusual noise that can signal a potential collapse. Except for a very small, isolated areas of damage, I'd recommend a professional restoration contractor. And you do want to contact a professional to evaluate a tree's stability and to safely remove any suspected hazard trees from the property before conducting any cleanup. Again, you want proper PPE, you want to avoid skin contact, and wash it as it occurs. Don't do anything that'll raise dust, like dusting with a dry rag or using a leaf blower. Utilize a HEPA vacuum instead. No food, beverage, or medication where it could become contaminated. If there is asbestos, lead, or carbon monoxide in the area, the N95 will not protect you. A higher level of respirator is needed. You want to avoid any burn items that might contain hazardous material. Avoid any ash from wooden decks and other structures that have been treated with copper arsenate, since it contain arsenic. Now, these will be more pertinent to the restoration contractor that you or I would hire, but here's what needs to happen. You never want to operate a gas or diesel powered machines indoors. And I'd go even further to say, not to near any air intake vents or windows either. Confined spaces you want to not go into. Now that would include, but not limited to, tanks, vessels, silos, storage bins, any type of space with limited access um, and not intended for human occupancy. It does not include closets or photocopy rooms. And electrical safety is critical. You should never dust in a home or office surface by conventional means after a wildfire smoke event. Since a primary component of the dust will be the settled wildfire dust, if you disturb it, you'll probably be raising a large amount of airborne respirable dust. But you don't need to don the degree of protection that a restoration contractor hopefully would. Protect your lungs, protect your skin, and take care not to ingest any. This chart is from the ASHRAE guideline 44P, protecting building occupants from smoke during wildfire and prescribed burn events. It's critical for building managers to know when to implement the building measures to minimize exposures to wildfire smoke. The planning framework mainly focuses on reducing exposure to particulate matter and applies to most commercial buildings, schools, multi-unit residences, and similar buildings that use air handling units. Okay, number one, you want to develop a wildfire smoke readiness plan. You want to purchase your supplies in advance before fire season. For example, portable air cleaners and extra filters in advance. They're likely to sell out during a wildfire smoke event. Number two, perform overall maintenance on the HVAC system. Repair any broken dampers and actuators, and HVAC controls before the fire season. Pay attention especially to the economizer because they can be complex and they might not be installed correctly. During a fire smoke event, the economizer will need to be disabled so that you can't get any outdoor air in. Number three, upgrade the HVAC system recirculation filter. MERV 13 filters are recommended for the fire smoke events. But before fire season, the HVAC system must be assessed for ability to function with the upgraded filter. Four, you want to optimize system airflows. Before the wildfire season, determine an outdoor air intake level that controls odor, temperature, indoor contaminant level, and maintains a positive building pressure consistent with building and HVAC design. Five, you want to prepare to add supplemental filtration by purchasing additional MERV 13 filters. Upon the fire alert, these additional filters will be added to the air intake vent as pre-filters. Before the fire season, make sure you have all the supplies again that you need to attach them with. Number six, assess filter conditions by adding a port or pressure gauge to measure the filter pressure drop on at least one air handling unit. And this will simplify determining when to change the filters. Seven, to limit smoke intrusion during a fire smoke event, you want to weatherize the building envelope, including doors, windows, to reduce infiltration by sealing and caulking cracks. Obviously, keep windows and doors closed to limit smoke intrusions during an event. 8, prepare to monitor indoor PM 2.5 by purchasing one or two low-cost monitors equipped with PM 2.5 sensors, and you can either install it in the facility or you could have one or more handheld monitors. I find that the portable monitor is more useful than one stationary monitor because then you can go around the building and assess different conditions. You could actually put one stationary monitor and one portable monitor to use moving around, but I would not recommend putting the stationary monitor in the lobby because that's going to be the highest mixture of outdoor air since people come in and out of the doors. You want to put it on one of the floors to indicate the rest of the ones in the building. I would say the breathing zone of office workers. Number 9, determine how to create a temporary cleaner airspace within buildings before fire season starts. Now that could be anything from finding rooms without windows to the outside, or you could even create smaller rooms with plastic sheeting. Be ready to move in when the alert's released. You create something like that, your employees might not want to go home during a smoke event. You could be improving on the outdoor air substantially. Number 10, anticipate sources of the indoor PM 2.5, like printers and copiers, cooking or vacuum cleaning. Or you definitely don't want to have use of candles or incense. And finally, number 11, I'll go back. You want to test the system's readiness plan. Now, can the system handle the extra filtration load over a longer period? Do the employees know what to do and what not to do, how to and how not to? Then you watch for the alerts and maintain the systems. When you get the alert, you simply implement the plan, continuously monitor that plan, adjusting as you need to, and you operate your plan throughout the event. I realize that's a lot of work and expense, but it's the best way to minimize fire smoke exposure to the building occupants. Here are some tips for both the home and office and all hybrids in between. If any family member has heart or lung disease or asthma, check with your doctor what to do during a smoke event. You want to have a supply of N95 respirators. Stock up on necessary food and supplies so you don't have to go out when it's smoky. And when you do go out, wear that N95. You can create a clean room in your house, choosing a room with no fireplace and as few windows as possible, like a bedroom. Use a portable air cleaner in the room. Take the example used earlier for the office buildings. You want to buy your portable air cleaners before the smoke event. Again, make sure it has HEPA filters and does not generate ozone. You want to know how you'll get alerts and organize your important items ahead of time, including financial documents. You want to know your evacuation routes and where to go if you have to evacuate. Follow instructions from local officials. And you want to stay inside with doors and windows closed. Run the air conditioner in recirculate mode. Don't add to air pollution, indoor air pollution, like cooking, candles, incense, smoking, and avoid outdoor activities if it looks or smells smoky. And pay attention to local air quality reports and health warnings. Don't rely on dust masks or bandanas for protection from the smoke because it's just not sufficient. You want to use at least the N95s or better. So we have some time for questions. So if you could just type your questions into your chat, Michelle will read them to us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, at this time, we have plenty of time for questions. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss, please go ahead and put that in the chat box. For right now, our first, we do have a note in the chat. N95 FFRs are air purifying respirators. Just a note that would you prefer an electromeric respirator or PAPR?
You're absolutely right. The N95 is an air purifying respirator. And I think that would be fine for most jobs. But if you're digging in a lot of soot and ash, and then I would go to a higher level protection, such as either a half-face air purifying respirator. PAPR would be much better still. And again, it would depend on the amount of material that you were having to move. The example that I showed earlier of the Lahaina fire, that was widespread over a huge area. So without something like that, I think you'd want at least a PAPR. You might even want to go something with supplied air.
Thank you. Another question, what do you consider some of the biggest risks to debris cleanup workers?
Well, I think I mentioned that the soot and first the particulate matter that would come off, and some of the particulate matter itself may be contaminated with the polynuclear aromatic compounds, with the hydrocarbons, and so forth. So um, those would be the primary hazards when you're dealing with that material.
Thank you.
It would be hard to clear an area out after a fire also because there are really no permissible exposure limits for the most of the PNAs. So sampling would become somewhat problematic.
Got it. Thank you. Another question, if there's a daycare center on site, do you recommend that space being clean space and small children cannot use respirators? Do you have any suggestions for children?
Yes, I sure would. I would put the children in one of the clean rooms as much as possible.
Thank you. Is the AQI, as the AQI is a lagging 24-hour average, is there a better indicator for workers, for example, an 8-hour PM 2.5?
If you have that luxury, absolutely. Or even a moment by moment measurement, such as the handheld meter for um, particulate matter, where you get an instantaneous reading. You could also get instantaneous readings for carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide as well, and some of the hydrocarbons like benzene and acrolein as well, the aldehydes.
Thank you. Another question. How do you have any recommendations for communities as they prepare for potential wildfires? Should we ask local governments to have resources available to prevent disparities in the response rates? Do you have any recommendations?
I sure do. I think the more that we can organize and communicate, the better chance we all have of not only surviving these type of events, but minimizing the not only the health impacts, but the um, interruptions in business operations as well. So yes, definitely a community coordination is I highly recommend that.
Thank you. We're also getting a question about first comment, great presentation, and a follow-up question. Any recommendations for portable air purifiers, especially for lower income folks?
Um, well, I'm not in a position to give a brand name. But the only thing I could say is um, you want a clean air purifier that has a HEPA filter and also does not produce ozone, because some of them do.
Thank
Now, one
you.
thing that you could do with the air purifying units as well is that you can put that in your clean room. Another thing is if you take a like a vacuum, a HEPA vacuum, and have the exhaust going into the clean room and the um, nozzle on the outside of the clean room, you would actually be cleaning outdoor air going into the containment. I'd probably want to follow that up with air sampling to test that theory, but it seems like a rational approach if you wanted to have a super clean room. Be like a mini containment, like in the asbestos or lead industries.
Thank you. Kind of on a similar train, in an inundated smoke area, how many days indoors is safe with closed windows? I know that they experienced that in Santa Barbara in 2017 and had to leave at 3 days due to breathing issues.
Well, I wish I had an answer for that, but I can only tell you from my own experience. In 2013, the Yosemite Rim fire came within just a few miles of my house, and we were within about, well, we were close to evacuating, but we spent about 3 weeks where we were covered with wildfire smoke. And what I was saying earlier about how it rises during the day when it's hot or warm, and it goes lowers at night when it's cool. That's exactly the dynamic we had. I was at 3,500 feet, my home, and during the day it was warmer air, so the smoke was right at the house. We'd go down into Sonora at about 1,500 to 2,000 feet with our evacuation supplies and dogs and have cooler, fresher air. And the whole time I was there, and then back up at home when the temperature dropped and the smoke went down. Um, But the whole time, whenever I was outdoors, I wore that N95 respirator. And I did my best. I asked everybody around me, I said, you should be wearing these. They're $8 at Orchard Supply. And nobody listened to me. Oh, I'm tough. Well, I'm sorry, but your lung tissue is not tough. And sure enough, after 3 weeks, I was the only one in the whole community that wasn't coughing. So, um, yeah, that's the only way I can answer that question. There's really no way to predict it other than that. Just take the precautions you can.
Thank you. Thank you. And we also have a note in the chat. Someone linked to the California Air Resources Board list of certified air cleaning devices. So thank you for putting that in the
Oh,
chat.
good. Thank you for that.
Um, kind of a follow-up question on the N95s. Do you foresee a bigger push or a campaign for the general public to wear N95s during wildfire and air quality events, especially since we're experiencing more impacted air from wildfires? I've seen many pictures in the news and online of people walking the streets, and the air quality is not good.
Professionally, yes. Personally, I've tried and failed even before. There was so much controversy about wearing masks around COVID. And I don't know. I would say, yeah, let's push it as far as we can. We're environmental health and safety people, and sometimes we have to take the unpopular stand. And yeah, I would encourage people again if it happened again. Um, did that answer your question?
Thank you. Do you think that the current air quality health index recommendations are sufficient in providing the public information about air quality related to wildfire smoke? Do you know if they consider current knowledge or the changing environment in those recommendations?
Well, the changing environment really depends on the fire, doesn't it? If I would suggest if you want that kind of information, I'd suggest you go to the airnow.gov because at least with that you'd be getting more frequent updates. I can't say that you'd get hourly updates because, as I said, they um, they have a longer lag time if the air quality is unchanging, but if the air quality is changing fast, more rapidly, then they have more postings. So I would probably go up to that. But that's what we've got available now.
In alignment with data on air quality, we have another question. What are your thoughts on utilizing data published by personal monitoring stations to make decisions on whether outdoor workers should be using respirators? For example, certain homeowners post their readings online using Purple Air, which show real-time PM 2.5 data.
I highly recommend it. I think we ought to be out there testing people. Now, obviously, you can't put an air sampling pump on a firefighter. I mean, they've got too much gear as it is that they have to carry around. Um, Maybe an organic vapor monitor, yeah. But in terms of outdoor workers, that's going down the scale of exposure here. Um, Absolutely, I would do particulate monitoring. I would do respirable. I'd probably just do respirable sampling rather than total and respirable. Um, I think any employer, whether you're a homeowner employing someone at your home or you're a business employing someone outside, I think we have an obligation to see what we're exposing people to when we ask them to work out there.
Thank you so much. And also a note from the chat, AirNow Smoke and Fire Map is awesome for showing trends where the smoke plume is and how it changes. So thank you for sharing that resource and pointing to that. We have another question. Do you have any suggestions for testing Post-wildfire smoke remediation in cases where residential homes are impacted, remediated, and ready for reoccupancy. So, are you aware of any post-test testing that can be done?
I'm not aware that anyone's come up with a procedure for it. I think with a post occupancy, it would really depend on how much dust I saw in the home and how the work was done.
That
Um,
also made me think while you were sharing about cleaning and the need for wearing respirators when cleaning up dust.
uh,
I'm curious, are there any
mhm.
special companies that you would hire to do that kind of work if your home was impacted by wildfire smoke and had that accumulation of dust? And just thinking about occupational exposures, if I were to hire a cleaning service, is that something that they're aware of or thinking of? Is that a special occupation, or is there a need for raising awareness of those risks for regular home cleaners?
Well, the first place I'd look is for a restoration contractor. And if they don't say specifically that they handle wildfire debris, I'd ask them. Um, and then I'd try to check on if they have any experience doing wildfire debris. And and I would look around. I'm not familiar with that profession myself, but that's where I would start.
Thank you. And that also made me think too, the slide that you shared around HVAC, HVAC maintenance technicians. Yes, we talk about, opening and closing the dampers and indoor air versus outdoor air, et cetera. I'm curious if HVAC
Mhm.
technicians themselves are trained on, wildfire smoke and dust debris and what kind of hazards that present. I'm not sure that you have an answer to that, but if you do, that would be great. And if not, it's something I'm really curious to learn about.
Well, I bet it would depend on the client. I mean, I've visited lots of clients in my profession, and some of them are um, really on the cutting edge of something like that and saying, "Hey, there's something here. I want to find out," and they make provision. And then others, um, I don't know. I don't have any statistics on how many are trained at it. I've not seen any training programs for um, uh, HVAC technicians.
Thank you.
I'll add that on my list of things to look up and
Yeah,
research.
I was thinking about that during your presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
If you do real-time monitoring with a dust trap, how do you compare those results with the results of the AQI?
Well, I don't know that they are comparable because first of all, you're collecting your sample in a different place from where the AQI has their monitor. And when you're talking about dust or particulate matter, um, it really varies. I mean, it is not a continuous concentration everywhere unless you're in the middle of the fire smoke event. So I would say they may be somewhat proportional on a wide scale, but they're really not comparable in my opinion.
Thank you. Another note, it may be difficult to advocate for use of for face respirators from the general public when firefighters who fight wildfires cannot use respirators for various reasons. Are you aware of any
Mhm.
requirements coming into force for respirator use by firefighters, given the recent research that depicts the impact of the exposure?
I'm sure not. No, I'm not. But I've noticed the same thing. I've not seen any respirator supplies or anything like that. Of course, I'm not ever able to get I wasn't able to get to the front line at the Yosemite fire. I've always wanted to work for Cal Fire, do some monitoring, but no, as far as I can see, they don't, from what I've seen and heard.
Thank
I may
you.
be wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me.
And do you know, is wildfire ash carcinogenic?
It can be. It can be. It depends on if it contains the polynuclear aromatics, and the other hydrocarbons, those would be the potential carcinogens.
Thank you. Kind of on a similar thread, are you aware of the cancer rate for wildland firefighters? Is that something that you're able to comment on?
I did not come across that data, but that is an interesting thing to research.
Excellent. I think we've answered the questions that I see here. We do have a couple more minutes, so if anyone has another question, please do feel free to ask it now. Oh, yes, does wildfire ash contain lead?
Michelle, you and I were talking about this before, and I have heard that it can contain a number of metals. I have not heard lead specifically, but I've heard manganese. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but I've not come across that reference. It's hard to know what a tree is going to absorb from the ground too, whether it's something they can use as a nutrient or if it becomes a trace um, contaminant or what. I'm just not familiar with that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I also would add to it, the difference between wildfire, like wildland wildfire with trees versus, homes and debris in the urban wildland interface. I imagine you'd see a lot of different metals and contaminants between those environments.
Well, that's absolutely right because the treated wood, as I mentioned about the decks, it could contain um, an arsenic compound that's used to treat the wood. That's just one example, but there's all kinds of construction products that are used in those homes that could be creating all kinds of other nasties in the smoke and the ash and the rubble.
Thank you. Oh, and we had some folks weigh in who've done some research. The California ARB found lead and copper in some air samples they collected during the 2018 Camp Fire. Thank you for sharing that information.
Oh,
And then we
thank
also,
you.
someone commented that they've found lead, mercury, asbestos, and fiberglass, but it depends on the area burning and the history of the land use.
Wow, mercury. Huh.
Yeah, thank you all for contributing. Appreciate that. Um,
Definitely. I'm looking forward to reviewing these chats.
Another question. How long after a large fire should workers be concerned about exposure to ash and dust that might be on the surface in the soil? Is it months? Is it years?
That's a good question. Um, I would say as long as the rubble is there, it's a potential problem. It probably grows less over time, and the more it gets filled with topsoil and so forth, it would be less. But if I walked across a field, if I saw a field that was covered with black rubble, I would be concerned.
Thank you. Do you see a way that wildfire smoke within a building, for example, a home that's been heavily impacted by smoke, can penetrate the wall finishings into the wall and into the ceiling cavities? Is that something that you're aware of?
Boy, it sure can. It sure can. Especially these hydrocarbons. If they're coming off, um, they can easily penetrate and then adhere to other surfaces in it. I would consider I would consider the whole home potentially contaminated.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your presentation with us today. Um, do you have any final thoughts or comments before we close the webinar?
I think we've covered it all really well. Thank you, especially thanks to the people that have participated in the Q&A. And again, thank you all for participating.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. As a reminder, this presentation was recorded. It'll be available online within 5 business days. Really appreciate all of the questions, the interaction, answering our polling questions. A special thank you to Michael for presenting today. And be sure to check out our website for more information and to register for other upcoming webinars. COEH at berkeley.edu/about CE. Thank you all again for being here.